Aikido is famous for the ability for a smaller person to win against a bigger person, a weaker person to win against a stronger person. So in a sense, meaning that size doesn't matter. Nonetheless, though, based on the difference of sizes, the situation can change. And for a smaller person to train with a taller person, vice versa, it does make a difference, and actually it causes some challenges too. In one of our last videos, we actually looked at how for a smaller person to deal with a bigger person, with a taller person, what abilities, what points of focus to actually do the technique well despite the difference in height. But this is still touched quite often because in this sense you can see that the smaller person has a disadvantage because of the size and the strength, the capacity of the muscles. Yet for a taller person, actually there are some challenges and difficulties as well in doing Aikido. One of the reasons already is that Aikido is developed by the Japanese, and Japanese people are shorter. Sensei himself wasn't very tall either. So some of the techniques which were developed were oftentimes developed by shorter people against taller people, but then taller people still train Aikido. So today in this video we're going to actually look at how to train Aikido and what challenges you get and how to overcome them as a taller person training with a shorter person in Aikido. So myself, I'm quite a tall person considerably, and in Lithuania, my country where we train, people tend to be tall, but still there are definitely size differences, and oftentimes I am the tallest person, so I definitely know what challenges a taller person can come into. So we're going to explore them today. My uke Eduardas, he's a bit shorter, so the height difference is not as big. It can be sometimes very dramatical, very drastic, and nevertheless, I'll explain the main points of how these principles work from experience, and I'm going to show it. Since there's still a height difference, I'm going to not only show you how it works, but also sometimes explain those more troublesome situations. So now, there's a few techniques where the height difference really kicks in, and you really have to notice how it works. So the first one we're going to look at is Shihonage. The height difference can really be troublesome here, because first of all, when you do Shihonage, whatever type of Shihonage you do, one of the weak points that many people do, even actually shorter people, is that they bring the arms back where the partner can pull me back and I lose his center. I'm not holding his balance. So that trouble arises for everyone, but nevertheless for shorter people, to bring the arm in front is easier. For a taller person, when you turn around, you'll have to do this in many techniques actually. You're going to have to bend those knees. You're going to have to become a bit shorter than your partner. And then as you bring that arm over, notice my knees are quite bent, quite deep, quite low. And only then I do the technique. So that's one point. It is to, as a taller person with a shorter person, you're going to have to bend those knees. You have to use to go down. Now notice, when you want to become smaller, many times people collapse in their back, and tall people do that in general to be more of the same height with other people. In Aikido, that doesn't work, that doesn't help. You lose connection with your center, you lose connection with your partner, you use your extension with the arms. So whenever you bend your knees, make sure you maintain the back straight. So bending the knees, the back is still straight, then what can also help in this technique is actually to bring the shoulders a bit up, going in front, and here I go out. One of the first tips, as I said, you're going to have to bend those knees to become shorter, but when you bend the knees, never collapse in. Same thing applies in Iriminage. So if I go in here, now from here, since I'm taller, it's hard to do the Iriminage, and I cannot pull him up to myself. So another tip that helps taller people is actually a wider stance. That's one trick. So when I do a wider stance, now I'm actually already a bit shorter. There's a bit more weight on the front leg here. But nevertheless, even so, not only do I have a wider stance, but also I bend those knees a bit still to become lower than him. So here, I bend the knees, I keep a wide stance, and then I bring him down towards myself. Bring him out and do the technique. Unless I do that, I'm gonna need to force him. So meaning here, if I don't go lower, I'm gonna use my arms. There's no center to center connection. So wider stance, bending those knees, and then do whatever you need to do in iriminage. And one more point, one more technique I'll show. It can be a big pain for tall people, especially with much shorter people. That's koshinage. So if I do a koshinage, a lot of koshinage is about, it's a hip throw, even in translation. So if I want to throw him through my hips, if my hips are going to be higher than his, that's where most higher people's hips are going to be naturally, I would have to physically pull him up here, which is going to be really hard. There's a lot of weight that I would need to carry up. Some of the ukes are nice, polite, gentle, and they actually, especially skilled ones, they know how it works, so actually they jump on the back. But then, that doesn't really do me justice as well, because I think I do the technique right, but actually the partner does it for me, and I'm not going to develop. The next time I'm going to meet another person, he's not going to know what to do. I'm not going to be able to throw him. I'm going to need to force him over. So in koshinage, if you want to do a proper good koshinage, your hips, first of all, they have to be lower than his hips. So then I can actually bring him naturally, lean him on myself. But now in terms of the technical sense of taller person versus smaller person, again, those same tips that I mentioned before. So I'm gonna have to go in a big wide stance. That brings my center already lower. And then don't forget that leg. I bend the leg quite a bit, right? So wide stance, very wide stance, especially if it's a much smaller person, super wide stance, a lot of bending, a lot of support on the knee here, and then I bring my partner into a koshinage. If I do a short stance koshinage, same things apply. So meaning here, if I come in, short stance, again, if my hips are higher, I'm gonna need to force him. So I'm gonna really need to bend those knees. And you're gonna have to get used to this. You're gonna have to develop the muscles for it. That's the deal for taller people. But when you get used to it, you should be fine by bending those knees quite a bit. But don't be afraid to do that. So my last tip and reminder, although there could be more, but these are the main ones. As I said, for tall people, psychologically, when other people are shorter, there is a tendency to want to be closer to them, to want to be more equal, and taller people tend to collapse in. And in Aikido, it's very important to keep your back straight, to keep your posture. So do notice that when you do techniques, for example, koregashi, make sure you keep that back straight. Don't be uncomfortable for being tall. Become big. Use those knees, bend the knees, but don't bend the back. All in all, if you will be able to maintain those principles, maintain that posture, bend those knees, make a wider stance, adjust yourself based on the partner, trust me, in the beginning it's hard, but if you're able to do it, you're gonna be fine. So this is it for today. If you have some requests or some topics that you are very interested in Aikido, let me know in the comments. There's many videos more to come, so subscribe to know when the next video comes. Like, comment to support our channel. And as always, this is Rokas. Thank you to my Eduardas, and we'll see you on the virtual mat again soon.